After Uganda held its referendum in 2005 to return to multi-party politics, the mantle to lead the first opposition in parliament fell squarely into the hands of Professor Morrison Ogenga Latigo. With him at the opposition bench from Prime Minister Professor Apollo Nsibambe then, Uganda experienced its golden age of principled disagreement and navigation of truly divisive political matters. There was the northern Uganda conflict, to which government chose guns, where opposition opted for talks, and where government took the ICC road, the opposition firmly held to traditional transitional justice. The kind of politics preferred by Latigo and his ilk is now, however, long gone. And tonight on the spot, we pick his mind on how divisive politics can be navigated. We also pick his mind on the land squabbles ravaging northern Uganda. Professor Morrison Ogenga Latigo, thank you so much, sir, for having honored our invitation. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and it's my pleasure. It's been quite a while since I was last.
Yes, by the way, it's been quite a while because I think I am told you were held up in your beautiful village of Kalongo,
yes,
in Agago. Yes. And I'm wondering, for a university professor, a former leader of opposition, what keeps you going in Kalongo?
Well, what would I say? The place is nice.
I know it is.
And I have things to do. Politics was a by the way. My first calling was academics, which I can still do even when I'm in Kalongo. I still examine PhD theses for Makerere. I still review proposals for NARO. I still do consultancy work with the Economic Policy Research Center. But more importantly, out of this noise and the mess in Kampala, I'm able to read. I love to read, and I still do a lot of reading.
Wow, it must be very beautiful, especially when you're in your home village doing what you are passionate about, and your profession, your passionate are coming together.
Yes.
I think the results must come. But I also understand that you have tried to go into the area of agriculture, and you're transforming part of your village in Kalongo.
No, I've been in agriculture ever since. I only get carried away from it each time I'm in active politics, I'm in parliament, and then you have to spend too much time outside the farms. But, and you know the nature of agriculture in Uganda now. Labor productivity and reliability is horrible, and you have to be on top of things if you have to make any success. But, you know, it's important for those who don't really know Kalongo. Kalongo is where there was the beautification of Dr. Joseph Ambrosoli last November.
Yes.
And just 6 miles away is where the Paimol Matters Shrine is. So it's a place that is...
Jilwa and...
Jildu and Odiokelo.
Yes.
And so it's a place also where you can still see faith amongst people, maybe some degree of morality still there. The usual challenge which you see in rural Uganda too.
And not far away from the neighboring district of Kitgum in Uigwen. Like
yes,
today
yes, where the Martyr Shrine for St. John and Lohom is just about 30 miles from Kalongo.
I know the Kalongo, Patongo.
Yes, and then...
so, doing any kind of addition, are you adding any value to whatever you're producing? Okay. No. So has Professor Ogenga Latigo retired from active politics?
Yes, basically, yes.
Though I'm told sometimes politicians do not retire. There's always that urge. There's always that urge that keeps coming.
Elective politics. Active politics, no. Because even sitting here with you is politics.
Elective politics.
Yes, elective politics. You know, times have changed.
I've just been speaking with my producer, Mr. Raymond Mujuni, and actually he put together that intro, and I couldn't agree with him more. That there was a time when, you know, divisive politics, that you, Professor Latigo, and the late Professor Apollo Nsibambe, you could be having political disagreements, but you can navigate it with a lot of civility. Something that seems to be in short supply in Uganda. How did we find ourselves here?
It's a generational change, and Let me tell you, Patrick, you know, this internet thing and social media, the impact it has on the mindset of people is incredible. Because the internet is almost instantaneous.
It is.
Something happens here, you don't have time to evaluate, you get the information, you disseminate. So we have reached a situation where the quickest responder is the smartest. It's not the most knowledgeable. And damn the consequence. And therefore, you see a degradation of patience amongst not just politicians, but the general population of Uganda, the young ones. You see a degradation of decorum because social media puts you, Latigo, at the same level with somebody in P7 who happens to be in that WhatsApp group. And those are the elements that you begin to see reflected even in our politics. When we were in...
I thought that technology should be harnessed for good.
Yes.
Why are we failing to harness technology for good? Because there's a beauty that you have all these tools, you have all these platforms. Ugandans are speaking to each other. Something happens in Kisoro, Kotido will understand. Something happens in Kalongo.
People don't
Kasese should know what's going on.
People don't
and that should be a beautiful thing.
You see, the big difference between our leadership of Parliament, me and Professor Nsibambe, is that we read. All those committee reports, I will read them, everything. So I can sit there not talking, but if there's need to intervene, I'll immediately intervene with facts above the average conversations you hear on the floor. And that generated respect, and that allowed, therefore, me and Professor Nsibambe to push our issues, even when they seem to be very controversial. Anywhere up the country.
There's a problem that even when somebody wants to reach out across the aisle from a different political divide, members of your own party can accuse you. Even yourself, you are not immune to somebody saying, look at him, I think he has eaten something.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you reach out across the aisle without, you know, appearing to your colleagues in the opposition that maybe you have...
just deal with the facts.
You have sold your soul.
Deal with the facts. You know, the best example, two examples. When I became leader of opposition, we, as a member of the Parliamentary Commission, we voted 35 million for vehicles. And then we went with Emmanuel Dombo on UBC television and talked about it. And I'm telling you, my party bashed me. And when I went, everybody was angry, but what I did was simple. I just picked the party platform, and I said, you have said here that you'd facilitate members of parliament. Tell me how best you'd facilitate them, better than giving them transport.
Means of transport.
And everybody kept quiet. The other case was the deployment.
So damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, but do it right, and then it doesn't matter whether those guys are bitter about it. The other example, which was very important for this country, is the deployment in Somalia. My party was deeply opposed. The whole General Muntu was also opposed, and I said, now what do I do? In terms of political strategy, we were playing again in the hands of the NRM, because they can then tell the West that, you see, these guys, they don't want to create peace in Somalia. But then, luckily, Crispus Kionga was then minister. We knew each other when he was in exile in Nairobi. And he came to me and said, Latigo, these things, why can't you people help us even in good things? I said, hey, Crispus, how can I help if you don't give me the information to make me...
Give me something to work with.
Yeah, so he brought the IGAD protocol and all those things. Government had formally signed to lead deployment in Somalia. That night, that day, I did not leave my office until 2 a.m. I prepared all the documents. The next morning, I called opposition caucus meeting, but I also had senior people. Ben Wacha, John Kawanga, they don't talk much. But they were really critical when you want an honest view of something. I quickly consulted with them. Reagan Okumu was my shadow minister for
Yes.
foreign affairs. So we called a opposition caucus, and I'd prepared this brief to them. And when I presented, he said, but there's no issue why we should oppose. The only thing is just go and prepare a statement.
You're able to be persuasive with facts.
Oh, yes.
And this was a noble Pan-African cause.
Yes.
But then today, Professor Latigo, you could be there in Kalongo doing your work, which you're passionate about and where your profession is, but also there's a lot of bitterness in Uganda.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of bitterness among Ugandans. And that scared quite a lot of people. And it looks like as we move forward, our future, some people would say secured, but maybe it's not secure.
No.
And bitterness, do you feel it? Do you see it?
Oh, you can almost hold it. I am in very many WhatsApp groups. Part of my participating in them is to understand.
To keep an eye on what's going on. Here on the ground.
And you would be amazed. There's a big one like Dairy of Intellectuals, Citizen platform.
I am on so many WhatsApp group. You can't believe it. I'm on WhatsApp group in West Nile,
Yeah.
WhatsApp group in Karamoja.
Yeah.
I know in Uganda. Sometimes when they go native, I don't understand, but I keep there because I need to know what is going on.
Yeah.
It's my listening post.
So I can tell you, sometimes you get scared. But then, you know, times have bequeathed the responsibility upon some of us who are still able to talk and who can still influence events. And coming here is part of that. Really, I don't know. I believe President Museveni is always on top of things. I'm sure he's also very aware of this. But the bitterness in this country is deadly. You know, we have to address it very urgently.
Every time there's been some kind of a protest on the streets of Kampala that maybe goes south, you can realize that within 2 or 3 or 4 hours, the town and Kampala can come to a standstill, and you can see that we are on a dormant volcano, that this country can actually be engulfed in fire. Within one day, it could be gone.
Yes.
So how do...
And this is the reality that we must deal with. The choice then becomes ours. That do we just let it happen? Can we bear the consequence? Because this country is so fractured. Everybody has retreated to his ethnicity and things like that. This thing about NRM or FDC is just a surface thing. Deep inside, I look at the...
What exactly, Professor Latigo, informs the bitterness and the hatred, which is taking an ethnic undertone?
You know, when people perceive a government as not being fair, that doesn't exercise authority with equity, and that seems to favor, even if, and perceptions are even worse than reality.
Because the world runs on perception.
Yes, and look at what you see in the NOP success in Buganda and Busoga. It's not about politics. It's about almost literally ethnic sentiment. The Baganda feels deeply disfranchised, knowing that this revolution was fought largely on their land, that they gave President Museveni a blank check, and they feel that they've been left out.
So you're saying we're still stuck with politics of identity, as opposed to politics of interests?
Yes, because where is the shared interest? These guys will tell you, oh, these guys. I had a very difficult story. You know, I'm on the Uganda Best Farmers competition. When we go to Western Uganda, Kashari actually, and then I sit with a farmer, we chat, and luckily people can confide in me. And he said, you know, look at this. This thing can go into flames. And I said, He said, you know, in Kampala, with the rains, I was doing a drainage channel to help everybody so that water doesn't clog the guys. Instead of thanking me, the guys were saying, you Banyankole, you wait, you will see. And this guy, the way he talked to me and said, we don't know if the president knows, maybe find an opportunity and talk to him about it. Now, that is tough.
Very tough.
And there are people who have been part of government, who have been perceived to be the beneficiaries of this regime. Many of them live in fear. Because anything can blow up, and all the efforts you have done would go down in ashes, like what the earthquake in Turkey did.
So,
yes.
So the constitution that we have and the timetable that we have of changing leaders and the supreme law of the land, you have a feeling it is not being followed to the letter? Because you have a constitution and you have a timetable that can help you replenish your leadership.
Let me
so why should we have a problem? We have the tools in our books.
Let me tell you that if we had adhered to the 2-term limits, President Museveni would have long been a retired president. But the likelihood that some very hostile force would take over after him would not be there, because we would have systematically prepared even somebody like Latigo, who comes from Acholi, to take over, the way it happened in Kenya. And in that situation, it allows anger to go down, it allows opportunities to shift to other people, and it allows hope to regenerate.
Even those who are opposed can wait it out.
Yes,
you know
and
what?
then
After
say,
5-10 years.
Yes, yeah, and people live on hope. Once hope is gone and desperation sets in, anything is possible.
But talking like that, then that presupposes that the leadership we have is not legitimate. If it is legitimate and given the mandate by the people, that shouldn't be a problem.
No, I mean, you see the definition of legitimacy in politics, you know what it is. They'll say we won elections. That makes it legitimate. But is it accepted that you disfranchise?
The measure of acceptance is in the ballot box.
Look, I mean, we have just had O-level results. And the other day we had PLE results. And Nakapiripiti is the worst district in Uganda. Now, that didn't happen those days. Even under me, I still came from Agago to Makerere.
And you can compete on a national scale
exactly.
equally.
Now, people are going to Senior 1. I can assure you, I don't know how many families from Agago, even if their kids did very well and got a 4, would come and put a kid in a Kampala school of 4 million, because they don't have that money. But in the past, your coffee would take your children to school, your cattle would take your children to school, your cotton would take your children to school, and then government will support. So
now we have a class difference. Public education is for the poor, and private education for the rich.
Exactly.
And yet we are all Ugandans and we want education.
But the class difference with an ethnic face, and that is very explosive.
But you know, Professor, sometimes you can talk of class difference with an ethnic face. When you actually try to dig deep, you realize that even the people you think are eating, they're also hurting.
I know.
They're also hurting.
I know. You know,
you can be in Kalongo and you think the people of Kasese are okay. But the truth is, they are not.
I have the huge advantage of having, of traveling all over Uganda. There was a time when we went to Nyabusozi, and our Committee on Agriculture, and there was this issue of the ranches. And then we had a meeting, and I just kept quiet. And the guys were talking and saying how these rich people have split up the ranches for themselves. The animals have nowhere to graze. And then one of them, wearing a M70 T-shirt, got up and said, "You Latigo, we know you. Even if you keep quiet, you go and tell your friend, the president, that he should leave this thing about removing age limit. Let him address our land issues."
Okay.
And so this is in the president's home district.
They have similar complaints or even bitter ones.
So it is something that we really need the country to come out and we talk to each other about it and say, what can we do? If need be, we do some visioning and say, if we take this path, this is what the consequence will be. If we take this path, this is what the consequence will be. If we make this intervention, this is what the outcomes will be. Now, if we did that, we'll Ugandans are very good, ordinarily very good people.
Well,
that is why
to be very hospitable.
But we politicians mistakenly take that goodness as weakness. It is not weakness.
So having heard such a story from Nyabushozi, having realized that also people are in a similar situation, then it is not enough to say maybe the politics has taken an ethnic, whatever, those who have taken an ethnic dimension, because really it's not true. It's not true. What you're telling me, it's not true.
Yes,
people are hurting the same way all over.
Yes. So
let me tell you, I come from Western Uganda, and I was always joking with the Honorable Kwirabwan.
Yeah.
You know, there is a channel that connects Lake George and Lake Edward.
Yes.
It is called Kazinga channel.
Yeah, I know.
You know Kazinga channel.
I know.
So if people there are saying, no, guys, it is us, the people of south of Kazinga, that we who come from north of Kazinga, Westerners, yes, but north of Kazinga, look at us in a different dimension. Well, if you're from Kalongo or Patongo, you cannot understand that there is actually south and northern Kazinga.
No.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's only when you come and live with people you can understand. But also when you look at south of Kazinga, they also have peculiar problems that are not different.
That means what we perceive to be a response of certain groups of people is actually a national crisis. And we need to deal with it as a country.
How do we deal with all this when there seems to be a high degree of impunity?
Yeah.
That is exhibited by people in power, people in business, corporate organization, or even people. Somebody buys a vehicle today, and you have some money, and you're going to drive against the rules of the land, and nobody's going to touch you. How have we reached this level of impunity, Professor?
I don't know.
You're lucky you are staying in Kalongo, but if you're driving in Kampala...
I know, that's why I don't like to come to Kampala. Even this evening, I was almost late, because I just get scared driving in Kampala. I absolutely get scared.
We want to hear from you.
Yes.
How have we reached this level of impunity? How do we deal with it?
You know, there are two things. If you insist that institutions work and work impartially, institutions will help you run the country. It's like in Italy, where you would have government crisis, or in Israel, where there are such frequent change of government, but the state moves on. So institutions have been badly eroded, either because the recruitment process is this, or people who abuse the institutional authority, some are left scot-free, and that breeds, it's like snowballing. As it rolls, It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And that is one. The other one is that regardless of who you are, even me, if my child is angry, I want to find out the basis of that anger. And if I think it is my mistake, I will find a way. If I'm too proud, I'll find a way of apologizing to the child and saying, you were right, and keep it up.
So before we take a break very quickly, what do you think this impunity can snowball into?
Where we started.
Anarchy.
Anarchy.
Professor Ogenga Latigo, we're going to take a break, and on the spot, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is Professor Maurice Ogenga Latigo, former leader of opposition. What do you think, Professor, are the areas of disagreement in Uganda's politics today?
The problem with Ugandan politics is that it's not about issues. So if you ask me areas of disagreement,
it's not ideological.
No, it is fundamentally, we are right, you are wrong. And it cannot be like that. And it doesn't matter how much you try to express yourself, that it is not the issue. There are fundamental issues to deal with. I mean, as a country, have we discussed about education and agreed? As a country, have we discussed about agriculture and agreed? As a country, have we discussed about the disparities that I used to talk about long time ago as leader of opposition? And you keep talking and talking and talking, and it continues to widen and to spread its root throughout the country. In the end, unfortunately, that disparity means that a larger proportion of the have-nots build in numbers and in momentum, and ultimately you cannot hold them anymore.
Is it time for us to seek for constitutional reforms and ultimately our politics in Uganda?
No, I think the Justice Ogola and
Godba,
yeah, they used to talk about this national dialogue thing. Talking gets a lot out of people's system. The Malemas do it in South Africa, but if you go and see what is happening in South Africa now,
they're on fire right now.
Oh yes,
political fire.
And you cannot move and be sure that you'll not be robbed.
Last week, President Ramaphosa could not even easily do his State of the Nation address.
Exactly. But what is holding that country together is the fact that those guys can still show their anger, and I'm sure somewhere in the back door they still talk to each other. Yes, but when you bottle a desire to express, it becomes like playing with the Tusker lager on a very hot day. By shaking it, it will blow on your face.
So, but Uganda is a country with some high degree of freedom of expression, like we are here. You can be critical, you can say anything on the floor of Parliament. We have, I think, the highest numbers of radio stations anywhere, perhaps even anywhere in the world.
No, that is the problem. That should not be the measure that I can speak. The measure is that when I speak, I can be listened to. That is what is more.
Although you're just a resounding gong.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you cannot say, well, we have left them to speak, and then what? You have not heard them. It's like the kid is shouting outside there when we are conversing in the house.
So I know the national dialogue that was in the pipeline was maybe disturbed or derailed by COVID-19. But do you think if we can bring Ugandans together and go into truth-telling, some kind of truth and reconciliation kind of meeting, we can be able to shut,
You see, for once, and the president must listen to some of us. For once, let the country talk. Let them talk. Let them choose whom they want to chair the meetings. Don't even waste your time telling them what to do. Let them talk. And if they think you should come and listen, come and listen. I can tell you, even that process alone
can be healing.
It will be so healing, you will not believe the change that will happen in this country. But if you still...
Yeah, but you see, if you have an incumbent government that has been in power almost for 40 years, most of the problems people are looking at, are contending with, they are blaming it on the government. Yes. So if you want people to come together and dialogue, they would almost be trying to dialogue them out of power, and that is not going to be accepted.
And that's okay. If that is the best path to resolving this, let them dialogue you out of power. At least you'll go home and live in peace, and the country will have a new beginning. What is wrong with that?
Because it's almost in the nature of every politician, when you have power, you want to retain it.
No. That is where...
Politics is the art of the possible.
That is where every politician who fails. When they think they must hold on to power at all costs, the cost will eventually be what will swallow you. Remember in 2014 I wrote that article, Political Succession, Why Can't We Learn from Trees? And one sub-heading was that a dictator's error never go away, they only accumulate, but it's like weighing sugar in the dark. You put a 5 kilogram stone and you're using a small cup. The first 10 cups don't make any difference to the weighing scale. But because it is dark, you don't know when the scale will tilt. And that's the challenge that anybody in leadership must contend with. That do you want that weighing to be in the dark?
We have a leader. I know you politically disagree with the President Museveni, but the two of you have respect for each other.
Yes.
And probably you understand him more than myself. Do you think when he came to power in 1986, he envisioned himself that he would be in power 40 years later? Or perhaps we're dealing with a man who's also trapped by his own power and doesn't know how to live.
I think in the beginning he probably genuinely believed that he would just do his part and move on with his life. But he got trapped in that power game. And it will take a lot of courage of those close to him. Because I can speak here, and what I say may be totally inconsequential. But we also know what happened when they disagreed with the late Kategaya, for example, with the Muntu. But somehow it is important, Mr. President, to reflect on the fact that even God listens to prayers.
He listens to prayers.
Yes.
So, what is it that we, this generation, seem to lack the spine that people had in the 1960s when they are fighting for Uganda's independence, that politicians had in 1970 when they're trying to remove Idi Amin from power, or even in the 1980s when they went to sacrifice them for 5 years in the bush? What is it with this generation that we seem not to have it? The gravitas.
No, it is the lack of common purpose. Those who fought colonialists, whether they came from Agag or from Toro or from anywhere, they had a common purpose: to remove the colonialists and bring about independence. We now lack a common purpose. It's in actually we say it's like when an elephant falls down, it is not how it is cut is not defined. It is how sharp your knife is. Now, in that situation, you can even go for somebody's fingers to leave you the meat. And that's where we have reached. We've become literally ruthless to one another, not realizing that...
Actually, that you've given the Acholi example. On the other side, they say that if they are fighting for meat and cutting the buffalo, even when you cut his hand, that he may not even hear, feel the cut, because the adrenaline and everything is focused on the meat.
On the meat.
The guy can leave a finger even in one. Yes.
And then when the meat is gone...
And for the Wanyakitara, they call it Ogenga tuguruara, that the finger that has been cut when they are squeezing themselves for beef.
And next time
they'll never get...
Next time you're not part of the hunters.
So, but you know, do you think, if you make a political analysis, that you have a president who has done his run, he has added value, that's for sure.
Yes.
But that he himself, even if he wanted to leave, he doesn't know how.
I think he would know how, except that he is now overburdened by the younger zone. Many of the younger zone will not want him to leave because they depend on him for the light that makes them shine. And they'll say, if you leave...
The opportunistic
yes.
hunger zone.
And that is the danger. If leadership is highly institutionalized, there are no hunger zones. Institutions will just tell you, Patrick, your time has come, go. And nobody feels bitterness because it says, I did my part. You look back and said, I did my part. Now, there's no doing my part. This is ours. This is mine. And that is deadly because this country belongs to all of us. And what are you going to do? I mean, you can jail opposition guys. You are not going to stop opposition from existing until you do the right thing and they feel part of your governance.
We want to hear you out on the issue of National Unity Platform that has really struggled with the release of their colleagues from prison, the Honorable Sewanyana and the Honorable Segirinya. And the leader of opposition has been blamed by some quarters for trying to use some methods of talking, you know, maybe talk to across the aisle. I don't know if I actually did that, but I can hear a lot of blame there. I don't know, assuming, how would you have done it differently as leader of opposition in this? And what do you make of almost 500 days? They are not in court, they are in remand, and yet the person who is accusing you of committing a crime, by the time they accuse you, then they should be having some evidence, really. Can you accuse somebody and you don't have evidence?
No, if you had asked me, I would have done it differently. if I was government, I would give you a good answer, because I would not jail them. I would not. If I had evidence, and there were genuine evidence.
You bring it forth and then...
Yes, and then say, look,
this is what happened.
But taking you to jail will not help. Let the country move on. You generate the amount of goodwill that is incredible. Now, what I perceive is that government wants to use suffering to scare off people. Suffering doesn't scare people. It generates anger and resistance. Yes. And I can assure you, when those guys got out, regardless of what you want to be perceived as magnanimity, you are releasing them without prosecuting them with clear evidence is something that has planted bitterness in the hearts of too many people.
And I can imagine if the Honorable Muhammad Segirinya decided to go and do his constituency consultation in Kawempe. You can imagine the kind of people, the kind of crowd is going to scare.
And then you have to take the police to
if
kind of
Sewanyana wants to go and talk to the people of Makindye,
And
for somebody who has not been there for almost 500
there will
days.
be a crisis.
That is going to be a problem to contend with.
It is totally unnecessary because, look, I mean, those days when the LRA was there, once in a while even Kony would call you on the phone.
He did?
Oh yes, he called me twice. But that doesn't make you a collaborator. It also helps you to understand the minds of those guys. And so I read somewhere where they were saying, oh, these guys seem to have connected with this doctor who was in Australia. That is really far-fetched. You want me to tell this country the truth? What you see in Nup politics, it's Buganda politics. It's not just Nup. You not see a Muganda elder in the rally. But
how do you, that's a very explosive statement to make.
Oh yes, oh yes.
How do you conclude that?
When we talk, me and you, I look at your eyes and I can read what is in your mind. Just listen to how senior Baganda speak, or many of them just keep quiet. That is louder than anything that they could have said.
It's when silence becomes too loud.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but you know, there are actual political grievances, there are actual...
Oh, yes.
I mean, this is...
Oh, yes.
They're actual...
Oh,
there's
yes.
actual pain that, that knows no ethnic line.
Oh yes, and that is the tragedy. And when you pick two MPs who, in the eyes and the minds of their people, are absolutely innocent, you just reinforce the hatred and the anger.
But let's not forget also that people who died in massacre were people from the central region. So,
but
I mean,
let me ask you. Let me ask you.
I don't know much, but what I'm saying, even in massacre, also needs justice.
Let me ask you that in our worst times with President Museveni and the NRM, would you imagine me linking up with Lakwena? No, because I'm saying, I know Sewanyana, we were in parliament with him. I know, Segirinya I don't know, but I know Sewanyana. And I said it publicly that knowing Sewanyana, if he's accused of what is being said, I can confidently say he never did it. The anger, I think the president probably was shocked by the scale of defeat he suffered in Buganda. But he should not look to those who defeated him. He should look to the cause of why they took the direction they took. So
the win for NUP and the support for NUP in Buganda in Central Region is huge.
It is huge.
What do they need to do to make that kind of support more infectious and to go beyond the borders of Uganda? Because if it does, it's a game changer.
You know, they don't have to have their support. If a similar discontent springs up in other parts of Uganda, cumulatively, that becomes a force that the present government will not find the strength to resist. And that is unfortunately where the fear of chaos, national chaos, would come in. And we really need to avoid it. If the cost of avoiding that is climbing down and being more humble and saying, I mean, I'm also a human being, I made mistakes. And then please, let us move on, because this country belongs to all of us.
Another issue that is very emotive in our country, Professor Ogenga, Latigo, is the issue of land. Uganda's land question has not been solved. I was listening to you in another forum. In fact, you were suggesting that maybe land should move away from individual ownership to government?
Well,
is that what you said?
my original position, even during the CA, was that. Because I envisage what is happening now. Unfortunately, I also made that assumption on the basis that the government that would come in power would be a government that would respect the law and let institutions work fairly and equitably. It turns out that things are not very okay. So now, if you ask some of us, we would even think a federal arrangement would be the political answer to the challenges.
You come from a land where land is communally owned, I think, in northern Uganda, and now to suggest, I mean, such an idea wouldn't be welcomed, not even in Kalongo.
No, you know, the context of my statement was about how we can transform agriculture. And land use...
You are suggesting that people who have land and is not being used, they should be paying a certain tax.
Yes,
so
but
yeah.
I'd also say that in Malaysia, when the Malays got independence, the economy was in the hands of Chinese and Indians. And they said, if we leave it like this, the indigenous Malays will cause chaos in future. So what they did was to create what they called Federal Land Development Authority. And that structured land use in Malaysia. Government gave people loans. And I can tell you, when I went to Malaysia in 2012, it was shocking because the average income of a Malay farmer and a felder, monthly income, was $20,000.
But you know, we have public land, we have government land. What has government done on its own land? We even have ranches. For example, Goto Aponyo. That's the name? Near that ranch.
No,
you have Maruzi.
No,
if you look up there, it has
the problem in this country is not land. The problem is that we are not using the land properly. And you cannot use the land properly if you don't empower the individual.
Yeah, but what I'm driving at, Professor, is that if government has its own land and they haven't used it properly, how do you even suggest that even private land,
but even
because they should be exemplary?
No, you see, agriculture is about people, and that is what I said in that program. The agriculture that I saw in the 60s was focused on changing the individual, and it was merely a means to change the individual. And so government invested so much. In Karamoja, we knew that the Koromojan cattle would move and bring in communicable diseases. So there was a complete vaccination program in Karamoja. And the government would vaccinate all the animals. We, the neighboring districts, government would vaccinate our animals so that the animals would not die. You know, but...
Let me get this very clear. Yes. What kind of tenure system are you suggesting?
No, it's not. Even, you know, the law has been put is politically impossible to change. So I'm not suggesting anything in that line. But government can impose its will on the people. That yes, you have land, but use it, and use it properly. If it is the loan you need for agriculture, we'll give you low interest credit. It's amazing. You go to Cairo, you'll find 3 or 4 agricultural banks in a desert. They use our water from here to do their irrigation, but they give their farmers credit for agriculture.
Professor Maurice Ogenga Latigo, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'll be trying to get in touch with you to read your comments or questions and send them on our WhatsApp number there so that they can read them for Professor to respond to you. On the spot, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guest tonight is Professor Morris Ogenga Latigo, former leader of opposition. You know, we are all feeling the financial squeeze. You know, yes. Things are not adding up anymore for many Ugandans. But the economic hardship is not a Ugandan-centric issue. It's more or less a global issue. In fact, for Uganda, a country that is producing our own food, probably even better. So in times like these, it is easier for people who are not in the government to blame because of inflation. Part of it is even imported inflation. Mm. What can government do to turn around the situation, especially when you know some of issues are beyond your control?
Well, I mean, if we look at what we are doing as a country, and we ask ourselves, are we doing our best? Then you'll find lots of things that you can do. Take agriculture, for example. You know, the agriculture that we do in this country, it will never pay. Because we are not technology-based. The inputs are so unreliable. The weather and the climate is not an issue at all. In this country, anybody who talks about climate stress doesn't realize the potential that this country has in spite of the climate stress. So if we were to do agriculture right, it would mean that household incomes will be high, household demand for goods and services will be high, opportunities for investors will be high, revenue for government will be high. But the best foundation and the easiest to tap is agriculture.
So sometimes when people like you who are highly exposed and in places of leadership you have been, you point out the area of agriculture and you think this is our low-hanging fruit. And I want to agree with you. My question is, for those who are not really going the agriculture way, they don't want or they don't get it?
Well, the other alternative, because it's about human resource. Look at our human resource. What have we done with it? UPS has killed.
We have somebody online. Let me first yes. Hold on to your point. I have a call online. Hello.
Yes, hello. Patrick Kamara.
Yes, what's your name, sir, and where are you calling from?
This is Matua Job Richard, the chief petitioner in NSSF, Saga.
Oh my God, Matua Job Richards.
Yes.
I am happy to hear your voice. You have caused quite a star in our country, Matua.
And I'm glad to see my senior, Professor Ogenga Latigo, submitted.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to make a fundamental contribution.
All right. You're on air, you're loud, and you're clear. On
the topic of divisive politics. My Laditi, Professor Morris Ogenga Latigo, and my in-law, Patrick Kamara, we have a country, but we don't have a nation. I want to explain.
Okay.
We are just made to be in Uganda from our different nations of Acholi, Lugbara, Langi, Banyankole, Batoro, Banyoro, Baganda, and what have you. No effort has been made since independence to create a nation in this country. So that is the real cause of tribal solidarity. You find an agency of government where only the Acholis are the majority employed. Is that the local agency of the Acholi? You have a ministry where the majority employees are the Lubara. Is that a ministry of Lubara or a ministry of Uganda? Therefore, we must really go back to the drawing board and do things that are consistent with the formation or building of a nation. I propose.
Okay.
One, we need to have a law or a policy whereby every agency of government or ministry, even including the private sector, must employ people that reflect Uganda. 25% should come from Eastern Uganda, 25% from Northern Uganda, 25% from central Uganda, 25% from western Uganda. You can call that URA of Uganda. You can call that Ministry of Health of Uganda. You can call that Uganda People's Defense Force of Uganda.
But jobs,
Yes.
mature jobs, you have to employ people on merit. I don't think merit should also be on a quota basis.
Now,
really?
Now,
I wouldn't have a problem. I wouldn't have a problem, Mr. Mature Jobs.
Let me explain.
I wouldn't have a problem if Mature Jobs and all your siblings are gifted, and I'm sure you are gifted. If you are going to serve the country, you can be employed and work.
Mr. Patrick, you saw what Geoffrey Sajabi was doing in NSS. Only employing relatives and the Sajabi are calling for NSS here. That kind of thing, it kills the nation for nation. And I said I have proposal, and I want to make the second proposal.
Okay, very quickly.
The second proposal is that we need to promote a national language which is indigenous. There's nothing which unites us apart from the flag and the anthem. Three, we need a policy of gender parity. Now we have educated women. In every sector, whether school, whether private, whether government, let's have 50% women, 50% men, 25% from the regions. Then we have a Uganda. Thank you.
All right. Mature Job Richards, the man who is the chief petitioner in the NSSF for issue. Quite controversial there. You make a point, Mature.
Well, the Constitution provides that institutions
should have a national character. We have another caller online. Hello. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Kamara.
Yes, sir. What's your name, sir, and where are you calling from?
Engineer Kaziwe.
Engineer Kaziwe.
Nice talking to Professor.
Okay.
Okay.
I think our main focus here is on agriculture.
Okay.
I'm a farmer like that gentleman seated next to you. But the issue of improving our farming in Uganda as a country, I think we need to focus on those who are already existing farmers who have interest in what they are doing than us wasting a lot of taxpayers' billions by giving coffee, 10,000 plants to a person who is not ready for agriculture. And the money is wasted there. In fact, this is what NADIS is doing, and that is what they have been doing.
There's been an increment, Engineer Kaziwe, in, for example, coffee. We have moved from about 4 million bags to almost 7 million bags. And isn't that a good thing?
Yeah, that is okay. That is okay. But
there's some progress. There's some progress also in terms of the money that the country is earning from forex out of coffee. We seem to be on a trajectory that is impressive, Engineer Kaziwe.
I'm not here to say that we are not doing anything, but trust me, that farmer knows. You give plant to somebody who is not ready to plant, who has not cleared the farm, and then the coffee rots in a plantation, in a nursery, where you dropped it. So I've seen it several times in Buama, where my farm is. They give these things just to people because they want them to sign. You have Ndagamuntu, you sign for coffee.
They're ticking a box.
Signing, they do the accountabilities by using your Ndagamuntu, yet they have not put any impact on adding up the number of farmers for coffee. Maybe we would be better than that.
Actually, what Engineer
Thank you, Engineer Kaziwe.
What Engineer Kaziwe talked about is something that I kept consistently saying every year when I was leader of opposition. And when I joined parliament, I did analysis, gave it to government, and I said, this doesn't work. Recently, people saw my article on PDM, and I said, it will not work. Because doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is
madness.
Is madness. We can do better. Let that funding be competitive. let that funding be rewarding, and you
so that you attract people who are passionate.
Exactly.
You attract people who have competence.
You see,
and people have experience.
I'm a farmer now. If I have to, I borrow money like I'm borrowing money for business, and the season will come and wipe me out. And farming is a process. It's a lifelong process. So I never built my capacity. I never improved my capability, because the weight of the money that I borrowed, which is commercial loan, will drag me down. If I had a low interest, like World Bank IDA gives poor countries low interest, long-term loans, but the same countries don't see.
But if there are people who can be able to identify a market for agricultural produce, would it be better to get into what they call contract farming?
No. You see,
so you give some people.
You see, the idea that you have to identify market is something which is diversionary. There's only market when there's a product. If you focus on the product, there will be a market.
Will be there.
Yes.
So we have another call online, but I had a question. But let me first take this call, and then hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Ogenga. I'm called Mahal.
Okay.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
What I would want to ask Professor, because I'm hearing him talking about a market for Uganda and all, but he hasn't just spoken about the issue of foreigners in Uganda. The issue of
foreigners in Uganda?
Yes, foreigners in Uganda, the foreign dominance of our economy. It's an issue we've had since 1890. It's not an issue that has just started with NRM. NRM has just continued it. Pardon?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, NRM has just continued it. But when you look at the banking industry, you look at the manufacturing industry, you look at the telecom, you look at the big business. You think about this, Professor. When we talk about rich Ugandan individuals, we are talking about people who are importing, people downtown, maybe schools. The typical Ugandan has been left in a very small market. The big bodies are the foreigners.
All right. I think you.
What can we do to change that?
Well,
thank you so much. I think he makes a very fundamental point.
Yes, but you see, in the 60s, the government did two things. They created Uganda Development Corporation, and under Uganda Development Corporation, they started going into industries, building them to a viable state, and then privatizing, with the hope that you can then support Ugandans. Then the other thing which was so important was Uganda Commercial Bank. It was deliberately created to provide credit to Ugandans. I'm glad that some time ago the president said it was a mistake that Uganda Commercial Bank was privatized, that the cooperative bank was privatized. And those were Ugandan banks. And then when indigenous banks like Greenland Bank started to grow, somehow they got chopped down to nothingness. So if we are going to help our country, let us agree that what we need are banks, industries, and that we will support people who have the initiative to grow and become the leaders in those sectors. If you go to Ethiopia, there's no foreign bank that you can talk of in Ethiopia. No. You will find Oromo, something, this bank, and all the profits that they make
All right, staying here.
Go back
staying in
to Ethiopia. And
I think he makes, our caller from Ogenga makes a very fundamental analysis, because look, the telecom industry is not in our hands.
Yes, yes.
Insurance is largely not Ugandan.
Yes.
The banking sector is not Ugandan. And even the hotel, there's no Ugandan with a 5-star hotel.
Even the Uganda Development Bank, which was revived, I don't even know how people get money from there to help participate in industries.
I'm told every end of month, people who have big businesses and are making money in Uganda, of course they're buying forex, go to NTV and flying it out. Yeah. And that's a norm. Yes. Flying out every end of month, flying out. So the money is not building Uganda. The money is being,
not growing.
It's just getting it out, getting out. It's being collected, and then exchanged into dollars and taken out.
We now have.
But at the end of the day, let's face it. Also, there is something good that the foreigners bring.
No,
they bring the skill, they bring the services.
Yes, but also
them choosing Uganda is a win for Uganda, because not every investor is going to go to any other country.
It is true, but you must attract foreign investment in tandem with the growing local investment capacities. Where are the deliberate policies that you can point to and say, this has helped this Ugandan become an industrialist, or a banker, or a large-scale processor? This is not there. But it has to be very deliberate. And it must be something that we must talk over, agree to as Ugandans in totality, not being imposed as somebody's will, but agreed to. And for heaven's sake, those countries that have developed, like China, is not your faithfulness to the Communist Party of China. China sent their most brilliant to Harvard, to the best universities in the world. And they brought the competencies back to China. And they transformed China. So it is actually in the interest of any government in power that it empowers its own citizens to the maximum. Because ultimately the benefit is the success and the legacy that remains and will be talked about that government.
So that's an opportunity we haven't really tried to harness, because we almost have like half of, apart from the Congo, of East Africa's arable land is in Uganda, and we haven't taken advantage of that. Yeah. Professor Latigo, I want to thank you so much for the time you've given us. I want to thank you so much for your submission. You always add value to our platform. Of course, as an elder statesman who understands some of the things, we learn from you. Thank you. And we're all great. We are always very grateful. What's going to be your parting shot?
Well, it is sometimes we get scared by the realities. The best solution to that is not to run away from it. Is just to calmly tackle them. We have political challenges. Let us accept that they're there, and let us tackle them. And when the politics is right, then everything else that politics is supposed to enable the country do will be done right. The economy will be good, the lifestyle of people will change, and the commitment to our country will be reinforced. And we have only one country.
Okay. Maomera Ladit Ogenga Latigo Apoyo. Apoyo.
Thank you.
Apoyo Matek.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know I can speak a little of Acholi.
I know.
And for us, the Batoro, we say we are the original Acholi Muchwin.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for you who have been listening to this program. I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. I know we have a good country and we are good people. We can be better. Good night and God bless Uganda.